The more and more I speak about this with people, the more and more I see and understand that a lot of people take this on board for themselves. They take on non-duality as an identity on the human level, and this is really unhealthy. For the personality to believe it's nobody, that's not what it's meant to be. Or for the personality to believe it's hopeless or meaningless, or that it's not going anywhere, or it's not the doer, that's not meant for the personality. Those words are trying to point to a recognition beyond the personality, but they're not meant to be food for the personality. If the brain structure tries to take that on board, then it ends up with a person that's not going to be very mentally healthy. On the human level, it's healthy to have goals. On the human level, it's healthy to have inspiration and passion and wants of what you want, of likes, of understanding what you like on the personal level. On the personal level, it's healthy to recognize what you don't want. On the personal level, it's healthy to like yourself and appreciate yourself, and to see that on the personal level you are worthy and lovable. Non-duality is pointing to something that's beyond that. It's the recognition that that personality is an experience, not the experiencer. When the personality tries to take that on board, it's the personality trying to fix itself with non-duality, and it won't. On the personal level, you have to rewire the wiring, you have to recondition it, like do emotional release or therapy. The problem is, on the personal level, is because you base your life on a lie. So you base your life on the idea that you exist as a separate person, then your thoughts spin round on this lie, like you're trying to find yourself as this separate person, which you can't. You can't find yourself because there is no self. So you're trying to find this self, you're trying to be this self, and as that self you're trying to control life and manipulate life and get love in the flow of life and avoid pain in the flow of life, which is all impossible. But it doesn't mean on that human level that the way to fix that human is to take on board the non-dual concepts. On the human level, you just recondition yourself to more balanced views. And that has to go along with the recognition that has to. If you just doing therapy without this recognition that that is not you, then the therapy won't improve that much. There has to be the recognition simultaneously that that is not who you are. That's a functioning. That's a brain pattern. That's chemicals. That's neurons firing. And who you are is the experiencer of this. Some non-dual concepts can be healthy, like reconditioning, but I just meet so many people that are trying to tell themselves they are nobody when they feel like they are someone, and that they are nobody to get out of what they're feeling. And to me, when I was waking up, it was all about going into the feeling, and in the feeling I disappeared, not out of the feeling. In the experience I disappeared, not out of it. Out of it, of me trying to tell yourself you are nobody, you do not exist, you do not have feelings, there are no feelings, there is no doer, it's not their fault. All of that was a seeking in time to try to avoid what was happening. It was in the feelings that was the freedom. It was in the actual experience. So if I was feeling frustrated, it was inside that frustration, because inside everything, and what I mean by inside everything, I mean in this present moment, in what's actually happening, there isn't someone. There isn't somebody experiencing this. There isn't somebody moving in time. There is only life happening. Thoughts happening, feelings happening, seeing happening, hearing happening. But there isn't someone that's happening to. This is the suffering, is the claiming of all that. And that person that claims all that then claims non-duality, and it won't help you in the human level. On the human level, if you claim it, it would just be about avoiding. This is about an absolute diving into experience. This is coming back to what's actually happening, and that's where the freedom is. The freedom is in the sensation. It's in the fear. It's in the frustration. It's taking back that neurotic thinking. So the neurotic thinking is off, that it's frustrated, it hates this person, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. And it's taking that back down to just the fear underneath that. The fear of existing, the fear of being squashed, whatever it is. And in that fear, you disappear, because that fear belongs to everything. In the immediacy of everything that's happening, there's nobody that owns it. Life is carrying that fear. Life is carrying the thoughts. Life is carrying the feelings. Life is carrying the sensations. This is where freedom is. Oof. Ugh. So who is it that looks out of your eyes now? Who is it that's experiencing the sensations? Traditionally in Advaita, it's always going back that you're not the feelings, you're not the sensations. Ultimately, you get to the place where you're nothing and everything. You're not those things, but yet you're everything. And there is no divide, there's no consciousness that's separate from the appearances. But initially, when you're speaking about it, it's much easier to say to someone, you're not the feelings, you're not the thoughts, you're not the ideas, you're not the sensations. But then eventually it's like you are everything, you're all those sensations. The consciousness is actually in appearances, and you're everything outside the body as well. Nothing and everything. But in the beginning, it's easier to begin to hear, even though it's not an intellectual thing. This is about going beyond the mind, but it's almost like you have to bypass the mind. It's easier to explain the consciousness, that there is something that recognizes the person. There is something that recognizes the wall. There's something that recognizes this TV screen, computer screen. That's not you. The you that you take yourself to be is being seen. And who is it that recognizes that? It's not a thing, but there is seeing beyond the personal movement of attention, beyond the thoughts, beyond the feelings. And that seeing isn't separate from everything. And it's instant. It doesn't go into time. It's not about thinking. It's instant. And on one side it's empty, and on the other side it's full. And then there's also this sense of existence, this I am, this beingness. And this is love. That is the nature of life, is love. The nature of existence is love, is the nature of the experiencer is love. It's not a feeling as such. It's the sense of existence. It's love. The sense that this is. You can feel it as you begin to let go, the illusory you begins to let go. It can be sensed. This alive presence that loves itself, that's complete, that seeks nothing, that's behind all things. And it's seen that nobody ever suffered. There was no one that was suffering anything. There was an appearance of someone that suffered. There was an appearance of someone in pain, but ultimately nothing suffered. There is a brain that thinks about what's happened and what's going to happen, but the experiencer in this instant does not suffer. Is totally free. Now what happens is most people confuse the feeling part. So I say all this and then they feel things and they confuse it. So what I also address is I also address the person to an extent, and reconditioning the person and pointing out the illusions of the person. And that is for the person. That is to relax the person. I've noticed if I don't do that, then the person doesn't freaking listen to me. It just keeps going round and round in its habitual patterns. Not that the person actually can listen, but it's like that person doesn't settle down enough to be able to hear non-duality. It just keeps going off in its patterns of hopelessness, of despair, of wanting, of believing it's the best ever in the universe, whatever pattern it has. So I have to point some of that stuff out to be able to point beyond that. So a lot of people, when they come with questions, they're going to be talking about what they feel and how they don't want to feel that. And they're also going to not want to address that and try to just go to the empty looker to not have to deal with that. But it has to be dealt with to an extent. It's painful, and that's why the person doesn't want to deal with it. So when you ask questions, I'm happy to either answer questions about non-duality or the person on the personal level. Most people want to talk about the person and what's uncomfortable in their life, because really on the personal level you don't really want non-duality. What you want is just to have a happy, relaxed, easy life. And yet things keep going not as you've been told they should have. You are told that one day you're going to arrive, and one day you're going to be able to own all your possessions, and what you notice is you never arrive, and you can never really own something. You think you own your house, or you own your partner, or you own your kids, and then they have their independent free will, and they do all these things that make you feel insecure, or your money doesn't stay, you keep spending it, it keeps disappearing, and then your house is insecure. Whatever it is. So you have to deal with that to an extent.